Greetings, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. My name is Tyler, and I will be your Toastmaster for the evening. Let's see, so today we will start with, I think we go over the rules first. So we will start with our rules. Can I hear from our grammarian?
All right, good evening, everyone. So I'll be the grammarian, and I'm basically just keeping an eye out for any kind of grammatical errors or words that just aren't in English language. The word of the day is vim. It means vitality, energy, vigor, and exuberance. To use this in a sentence, it says, "Fair enough, but where did that leave her husband, so full of vim and vigor?"
Thank you. So next, let's hear from our timer.
Okay, I will assume keep track of time from the health features to the evaluation and also the different topics as well.
And then can we hear from our odd counter?
Yes, the ah counter has the responsibility to count filler words. Could be like, whatever it is, whatever it happens to be. Many people sometimes just fill in with words that they have somehow grown to like. And I just had one myself, but twice. Anyway, so I'm counting filler words and going to report those in the end. Generally, I don't go over 5, so especially for new people, I find if you tell them that they've had five or more, it's plenty good enough rather than telling them like somebody did to me once. You had 100 filler words in that, in that 30-minute conversation. You had 100 filler words, and it's like, well, thank you very much, but I didn't think I need to know that well.
Yeah, I hear that. I usually end up in like the 15 to 20 range for the words.
Yeah,
So,
I like to go with 5. If you have more than 5, then you obviously will know that there's a bit of a problem there and may focus on it better. But if you get too many, then you start thinking, well, maybe it's too big a mountain to climb, and you might not want to go there.
That's
So
understandable. All right, and then can I get a word from our general evaluator?
Yes, so I will be keeping notes on the meeting, just giving you a general idea at the end how it went, and then we will call the other evaluations as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, now that we've heard from everybody, I'm going to move on to our first speaker. Do we have any prepared speeches for tonight?
I think you need to share table topics.
Oh, table topics, I'm sorry. Can I hear from our table topics master?
Okay, tonight my task is to, as a table topic master, my task is to give the topic and question.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so normally our first speaker would be Kabram. However, he's not here yet, so we'll start with Joe.
you need a second speaker. As always.
Famous topic.
With the figure 5 to 7 minutes. I can do a 5 to 7 minute table topic. If you need me to
Maurice,
read.
will you pass me the icebreaker evaluation sheet? Thank you.
All right, fellow Toastmasters, I'm Joe Tate, and I'm giving my icebreaker speech, so bear with me. So my icebreaker speech, I decided to talk about who I am and what I do and why I chose to take that career path. Like I said, I'm Joe Tate. I was born and raised in Mobile. I went to high school here at Mobile Christian. I actually married the girl I met in high school, so that was new. I went to South Alabama, graduated with a business management degree, and I chose to go into sales. Now not a path a lot of people want to take because of the commissions, but I chose to go into sales. What I sell is hydraulics, automation, and pneumatics. Hydraulics, you see it on tractors. Automation, you see it in plants. And pneumatics, you also see it in plants. Why I chose sales, it's one of the professions you get what you put in. If you don't make any sales calls, you don't make any money. But if you make all the sales calls you can and be the best you can, you make a hand over fist kind of money. I didn't choose sales for the money. I chose sales to solve people's problems. You go in and you talk with a purchasing agent, they're going to have a problem even if they say they don't. You pick and pry, and they'll tell you the problems they have. If it's lead time, if it's price, most of the time you can get them to say something that they have a problem with. And in sales, we like to fix those problems. If it's price, we try to offer them a better price. If it's lead time, we try to offer them a better lead time. I don't like to be the used car salesman that some people think is salesman. I'm not the fast talker. I'm not sitting here trying to pressure you into buying anything. I just want to solve some of the problems and heartaches that you come to work every day and you kind of just think that, why do I have to deal with that today? I want to help you solve those problems. Sales, it's a roller coaster of emotions. You got ups and you got downs. You could be making all the sales calls and nobody wants to buy anything and they don't want you to solve their problems. So you're not making your commissions, but if you have your so-called funnel filled with opportunities, then normally you can make it through those times. A lot of misconceptions for salespeople is salespeople don't care and they get labeled the used car salesman. That's not what a lot of salespeople want to be labeled. They want to, like I said, help you and help solve those problems. Last thing is why I chose Toastmasters. So in sales for my company, I have to take the president of the company on ride-alongs, the vice president, and my regional manager. My regional manager, I take more than the others because the president and vice president don't want to come visit our branch that much, and we don't really want them there either. But regional manager, so he goes on ride-alongs with me. He just takes notes of my performance in the field and tells me what I can do better or what I'm doing good. So I asked him when we were riding, is there any sales training? And he said, Toastmasters. I kind of ignored him just because I'm not a big public speaker. And then the next month he came for ride-alongs. He said, did you sign up for Toastmasters? And I said, no. And so that's when he started digging into my numbers and said, why haven't you closed all these opportunities? Have you met with the right people? I said, no, it's the higher ups and I can't get to them and it's difficult. And he said, Toastmasters would help you do that and help you feel comfortable walking up those stairs and asking for the appointment. So he's really the one that got me into Toastmasters. He pushed me to do it. He said it'll benefit your career, whether it's in sales, whatever you want to do. Public speaking is going to benefit you in a professional career, regardless if it's sales or management, because ultimately my goal is to be upper management. So he said that will definitely benefit you. So that is why I'm here and attempting to give a speech. So I will turn it back over to Toastmasters.
Thank you for that speech. I appreciate it. It was, I appreciate you incorporating your own experience and how Toastmasters is helping you currently. That's a cool thing to hear because everyone here has got a really different background. So it's cool that this kind of one thing is very helpful to so many people, so many different backgrounds. Okay, so our next speaker is not here, but Lawrence has volunteered to do a pocket speech. So next I'm going to call up Lawrence for one of his famous pocket speeches.
All right, does anybody have anything in particular they want me to talk about? That's the first question of the night. No? Okay. Then, Just a few months ago, when we had one of our speakers got up and talked about the reasons why he felt we should get rid of the Electoral College as a means of electing presidents. And I didn't necessarily agree with him that we should get rid of it, but I just happened today to read an article about why we should keep the Electoral College. Now, the main reason, in my opinion, from this article, that we should keep the Electoral College is because the founders of this nation understood politics very well. They understood that there are going to be things that happen in politics that are not necessarily going to be in the benefit of the people. And so then, to give the people the greatest power, they decided that the smallest group should be the group that has the most power. That's why they decided that the federal government should have a very limited and basic oversight, but that states' rights was the most important thing. The Electoral College is part of that states' rights. Now, the number one argument that people have when they say we should abolish we should abolish the Electoral College is because one man, one vote. My vote doesn't count because we have the Electoral College. But the reality is not necessarily that. The reality is your vote always counts. But your vote counts for your area. Now, the basis of the Electoral College originally was that each congressional district would have one electoral member who would go and be the actual one who would cast the ballot for the president. And it's only for the president. In the beginning, it was for the president, and then the vice president was actually the runner-up to the president. So we didn't have it like today. In the beginning, you had two people fighting to be president. Well, one of them got to be president, the other got to be vice president. So your nemesis was always right there in the office with you. So it was a little bit different system than what we have now. But it was originally based up to elect the president. So that means when I or you as an individual cast our vote, that vote is counted towards our region, our the congressional region or congressional district. So then, when your vote is counted, the theory was, the elector, that is the person that becomes the elector, would count your votes, and whoever got the most votes in your district, that would be the one that he would be required to vote for. Now, since the beginning, they've kind of changed it a little bit because, again, states' rights. Some states have decided to alter the system slightly. And by altering the system just a little bit, they've changed the whole dynamic of it to some extent. So in some states, they have now got it so that whoever wins in the entire state, all the electors from that state have to vote for that candidate. Whereas originally, as I said, it was that each district would elect whichever candidate based on the majority of the people in that area. So the Electoral College is very valuable. it makes it so that each one of our votes is going to be counted, is going to have some representation in the actual government. The second thing is that and in this article there were a number of examples where this happened, that larger areas that have a greater population, they would be able to come in and alter the election because they would have more electoral votes. If it was a person-to-person vote, that region would have a majority of the votes. At one point, the entire South was 30% of all the electoral votes in the country. So they had a great potential to create things to happen. Now California, just California, has 30% of all the electoral votes. If we let California have each person, one vote, with a person-to-person vote, they could literally change the entire process. The second most important reason, very quickly, is that it will reduce corruption. When they had the big thing in South Florida where the pregnant Chads, people don't think that Chad can get pregnant, but in South Florida there are thousands of pregnant Chads, and they caused a whole big mess in the government. The way the Electoral College is set up, that one area had to be recounted. If it was a one person, one vote, the entire countries would have had to been recounted instead of just that county. So, my friends, my fellow patriots, the Electoral College is a very valuable part to make your vote count. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for that speech, Lawrence. I appreciate that. I appreciate during this time, politically, there's a lot of people leaning a lot of different directions. There's a lot of good arguments. And I always appreciate a good, well-constructed argument from either side, really. But I definitely see where you're coming from and why this is important. It kind of reminds me of I was actually in the UK during the time when they voted for Brexit, and they don't have, to my knowledge, they don't quite have the electoral college like we do. So I'd gone from London to Edinburgh, where I was in a bar, and there were a lot of very pissed people in the bar. They were very upset. And so I was talking to this guy, and he was explaining the situation to me. He's like, how would you like it? He's like, where are you from? And I was like, Alabama in the U.S. And he's like, I don't know where that is. And I was like, well, it's in the southern United States. He's like, that's fine, whatever. And he's like, okay, well, how would you like it if everyone in California made decisions for you in Alabama? And I was like, yeah, that would really stink because things in Alabama are quite different than things in California. We may as well be in different parts of the world. May as well be just as different as the UK and Alabama, for all I'm concerned. And he's like, well, that's what happened to us. London made a choice for us. And, so that was very important to me. So to hear you reiterate that just kind of solidifies, my own perspective and the information that I have. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so now we will move on to the tabletop portion. So now I'll call up our tabletop master. You can come up now. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Toastmaster and guests. And tonight I'll make another debut at this club as a table topic master. The first debut was last week as a timer. The second debut. And okay, so table topics and questions. The questions tonight are from the Miss Universe pageant.
Ah.
The Miss Universe is one of the 3 major beauty contests in the world, as you know. And, the questions are from the interview questions and others of finalist question or the even winning questions to be Miss Universe. Please assume you are the contestant or one of the finalists on the stage at the Miss or Mr. Universe pageant. First question. This is from 2017, the final question. What quality in your life are you the most of, and how will you apply that quality to your time as Miss or Mr. Universe? Please assume you are a contestant or the finalist on the stage.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. Guests. The question is, what is the greatest quality to be Mr. Universe? I would say I am a pretty patient person. I think patience is a very good quality to have for, I've been told I'm a good listener. I think I listen too much, I don't speak enough, so that's kind of why I'm here. But patience and being able to listen to people's problems when I'm meeting with world leaders or just the community, I can listen to them and understand what they're going through and maybe help them help improve their lives and their situation. So that's my quality that I feel would help me in this position, Miss Table Topics.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. Thank you. As he said, patience is very key to be successful in any area. Professional, like singers, artists, whatever, patience is very important key. And sometimes really hard to be patient because it's easy to go on next, but when you do something, you have to be patient to see the result. In many ways, patience is very key. Okay, so next question. This is from 2018 interview to Miss Puerto Rico. A little bit tough politics. Hundreds of journalists across the world were jailed this year for writing stories that were critical of their government. Why is freedom of the press important?
It's got Lawrence all over
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Or Maurice?
Yes.
All right. All right, Dave by the bell.
Madam Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, the question that is posed to me is, why is freedom of the press important? Well, the most important reason for freedom of the press is we want to hear the news, the true news, or the news. What is correct, what is truthful, as opposed to what is spun. In today's media, not just the United States, I'm pretty sure it's all over the world, someone of a certain opinion may be running a news organization.
Constitution. Thank you. And, okay, next question. This is a winning question in 1997. Actually, I do remember. I think I watched this pageant on TV. If there are no rules in your life for one day, and you could be outrageous, what would you do? Did you get it? Okay. If nobody, I'll skip next. Would you like to?
Well,
Okay.
I'm
No,
always
I-
up to doing it.
You will be in life one day.
Ah, rules. If there were no rules in my life, my fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I do believe that there would be chaos. Because I am very easily drawn to many things. I have insatiable curiosities. Because I have insatiable curiosities, I very often will pursue things with a tremendous amount of vim. I like to try different things, experience different things. And I can take a little bit of my late youth and early adulthood as an example, because at that time I didn't believe necessarily that rules applied to me. So I was very easily persuaded to try this and try that and do this and do that, some of which turned out very good and some of which was probably detrimental to my mental health and everything else. So all these things put together, I think that everyone has to have some rules in their life. But if I had no rules, I think it would be chaos. Thank you, Mrs. Toastmaster. Miss Topic.
Lawrence could be Mr. Universe in 1937, I assume.
I'll be back.
Okay, next question. This is also a winning question too, and Miss Angola won in 2011. If you could change one of your physical characteristics, which one would it be?
All right, good evening, fellow Toastmaster members and honored guests. So if you can't tell tonight by probably the bags under my eyes or how slow I'm talking, I do not have a lot of vim in my energy tonight. So I always find table topics a little hard. Some of the questions that she's passing out tonight, I think sometimes I'd rather stand up here and just give a speech rather than answer the table topic. So I figured I could blow through some of my time complaining about table topics before I get to my question. So, if I could change one thing about my physical characteristics, what would it be? And that's really easy for me. I would be tall. Being short has always played some kind of factor in my life. If it wasn't short jokes, which I actually don't mind them. But being tall and playing different sports or anything like that, I think I've always just wanted to be taller in my life. And so if I could change one thing, it would definitely be my size, and turn back over to this table talk.
Yes, I think so.
Yes, yes.
For the last from Luke, that makes me think. Tonight, first runner-up is Mr. Lawrence. And tonight, Mr. Universe is blue. Thank you so much for sharing. Sometimes it's really hard to tell that if you want to change the characteristics, that means probably you don't like that part. But you're very brave to share that part. I really appreciate it. Everybody likes some physical part. For example, me, I'm I'm satisfied with myself. Thank you so much for
All right, thank you.
giving this opportunity. I did enjoy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. That was an awesome table topic session. I really appreciate the creativeness and the theme that went to it. Just because the On This Universe thing was really cool, because there are questions that have been asked to people on
Yes.
live television. So, but yeah. So next we'll go.
Just a quick
Yeah,
point.
sure.
I mean, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all right.
One question that should be asked about the Miss Universe or Mr. Universe is, why does Mr. Universe and Miss Universe always come from Earth?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess no one has come to compete yet. That's a good point. You know,
New Mexico. That's why.
yeah, with that Area 51 stuff that's gone on, maybe all the other contestants are like contained. So we're cheating. So but anyway, all right. Well, that was, like I said, I really appreciate that theme. It was cool because this is stuff that people had to actually answer on TV before, and it's questions that really question your character. So it takes a lot of time to like think about what they mean to you and how we each respond to them. Okay, so with that, we move on to the evaluation portion of the meeting. So I guess I will start with calling up our general evaluation.
Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are having a good evening. I will start by giving my general evaluation. Correct?
You are in charge of this training. You
I'm in
decide new
charge.
orders.
I'm in
Okay?
charge. So I'll give my general. Well, I'll let you read the rules first because I might have something to say about it. But could I get the timer report, please?
Of course. Okay.
What?
What is it?
If you do the evaluations first, you can get the timings on the
Oh,
evaluations.
that is correct.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start with my general evaluation. So our meeting started on time, which is awesome. And even though we didn't have all of our roles filled, we did a good job having people step up and volunteer, even taking multiple roles. So good job, everybody, teamwork. And I love that we had 2 speeches. I have been out for a while, but in the past, there's only been 1 speech, so it's good to have 2. It means everyone's working toward those speech goals, and that encourages me to also do the same. I appreciate your icebreaker, Joe. I know those are kind of nerve-wracking. When I did mine, I was like, how much do I just give to everyone? Because there's a whole life to write down. So you did a good job, and it kind of gave us a good insight on what you do now and why you're in Toastmasters. So appreciate that. And Lawrence, we appreciate your pocket speech as usual. It was very informative. It made me realize I don't know as much as I should, and it was encouraging to not be discouraged and know that our vote counts. So appreciate that. And Carrie loved the table topics. They were creative and fun. And although I do like the questions that we have from our list, it's always cool to see everyone's spin on table topics and what they can come up with. And I've had to answer, I did a pageant thing in high school, and getting those questions in front of everyone is so nerve-wracking. So I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can do the questions again, but it was awesome. Thank you so much. So now I will call up Diego for our speech evaluation. Did you do 1 and 2?
No, I just did Joe's.
Just a Joe. Okay. All right. And please welcome Diego.
Thank you so much, Cheyenne. And I'm very appreciative that one of my mentees is now taking more leadership role in the group. So that's it's always good to know that the mentees are hopefully learning something from someone like me. But anyways, let's move on to the evaluation. I had the great pleasure of evaluating Joe's icebreaker speech. It's been a long time coming, and we really appreciate when our new members take that big step forward, coming up to the lectern and getting a feel of what it's like to have the lectern before you, to have an audience before you. It is a new muscle that does not get enough treatment from pocket speeches alone, because now you are asked to come up with a main idea, you're asked to embellish and flourish on that main idea, and most importantly come to a close and wrap up that type of main idea that usually a pocket speech or a table topic speech doesn't really provide for that muscle to be developed. But there's a lot of promise in Joe tonight. I'm looking forward to the next speeches he gives, because what I really liked in Joe's speech tonight was a calm energy that he provided to the lectern. It sounded like this is one of the first prepared speeches he was giving, but the level of energy provided to the lectern was really nice to see. That is usually not what is seen amongst the first icebreaker speeches. There's usually a lot of nerves, and the nerves really show from stuttering a lot or using filler words and things like that. And I think it's clear that Joe was very comfortable with pausing throughout the speech when he had to look over his notes. He was very comfortable with the silence in between the words that he was sharing with everyone. One suggestion I want to share with Joe is I noticed his hands were at his chest, and sometimes they broke away with a few gestures, and I would encourage Joe for the next speech have some more pronunciation and more emphasis on those gestures to really emphasize a point that you want to communicate across. Another good habit that I want to see in the future was you did an excellent job of staying within the time limit. It was clear that you had a main idea that you wanted to communicate across within the 5-minute time period you were asked to share a little bit about yourself. One more suggestion I want to share with you is having more engagement with the eyes with the audience. I felt that some of the moments where you were looking down at the speech, looking at your speech, kind of broke the connection with the audience, and so I think a really great remedy for that in the future is memorizing more of the speech. So that way the audience feels that you're speaking to them and you're not just looking down at the lectern for most of the time. Overall, it was a really great icebreaker speech. I think you've set a really great foundation for the next prepared speeches that you're giving. And I think many of us in this room are looking forward to the next speeches you give on your pathway. So thank you very much, Joe, for sharing your icebreaker, and we're looking forward to the next one you give. I'm going to turn the lectern back to our general evaluator. I don't think we had a second evaluator since Lawrence gave a pocket speech.
Okay. So since we do not have a second evaluator, I will go ahead and skip to the reading of our roles. If I could get the report from the timer.
Oops. Okay, the speeches that pocket speech. Joe had 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Lawrence did 7 minutes and 24 seconds. For the two topic portion, Sean had 1 minute and 3 seconds. Louise had 1 minute and 20 seconds. Lawrence had 1 minute and 32 seconds. And Luke was just 1 minute. For the evaluation portion, Cheyenne did 4 minutes and 29 seconds. And Diego did 3 minutes and 5 seconds.
Thank you for that, Ellen. And could we get the report from the counter?
The counter. Well, we had a few different things this evening that were considered in the counting. Diego, you actually did not do as well as you usually do. You had over 5 ums and ahs and such like that in your talk. Tyler, you had 1. I had a few. I don't know exactly how many. I had 3 written down. It might have been more. Oh, Tyler, by the way, you also had 3 you knows. And generally speaking, if you're up there telling us, we probably don't know. Okay?
Makes sense.
Cheyenne, I caught you with 3 ahs and ums and 1 you know. And Carrie, you had one or that I caught. Luke also had 3. Donovan had 1. And those are what I had for ahs and ums. And I may have missed some, but hopefully that's, all in all, everyone did very well this evening.
Thank you, Lawrence. And our grammarian?
All right, I really enjoyed listening to all the speeches and the table topics tonight. I found myself kind of getting involved in the speeches, and it was kind of hard to keep up with the grammar, but I did not hear any incorrect usage of any kind of words or grammar. I did, however, have a double word that I said that Lawrence caught. I said at the and. And for the word of the day, Lawrence used it once and myself used it once.
Awesome. And with that, it is with them that I pass the electron back to the Toastmasters.
Alrighty. So, last but not least, do we have a educational?
I can do one.
We do it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will call Diego for an educational speech.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to share with you all tonight a very important finding when it comes to speeches, and prepared speeches in particular, because I have fallen victim to this type of problem, and that was specific in last week's prepared speech where I gave on chemistry and on chemistry and how the rate of chemistry is involved with how we can scientifically represent rates of chemical changes and things like that. And the lesson that I learned the hard way was that you will notice that when it comes to writing speeches and making up your prepared speech notes, the rate of, how can I communicate this well? What I want to say is that usually the first draft of the speech notes that you want to share with everyone are going to run over the timing, this allotted time that is given for you to do. I think what everyone will eventually learn, if they haven't learned already when it comes to a prepared speech, is that you will find that when you're speaking slowly and when you're trying to reiterate a point, which is frequently given in prepared speeches, you have to say that multiple times. And saying that multiple times really takes up more time than you would expect. And I think this really emphasizes the importance of when it comes to doing a prepared speech, before you give it, you should definitely try and rehearse it for yourself outside of the meeting environment. And I think you will make a pleasant surprise that the amount of notes that you give actually can represent a longer time period than you think. And I think that is a very big pleasant surprise, because that really starts to shrink how much of the notes you have to give or how many ideas or comments you need to memorize when it comes to giving a prepared speech. As an example, I feel like I had a page worth of, well actually no, I'm sorry. For the slides that I gave last week, I want to say I had 14 slides. And my speech was supposed to be within 5 minutes. And I feel if I could go back in time and do the speech again, I probably should have kept it down to five slides, where each slide should get about a minute worth of communication and embellishment and reiteration. And I think that is really an important finding that I wanted to share with everyone with the educational overview, is realizing that, a note, maybe a comment like, for example, Joe's speech on, now I'm going to give some background on why I care about Toastmasters. If you have a speech note saying, I got interested in Toastmasters because my higher-ups told me to, or I realized that my sales numbers would increase as a result of that, you will find that communicating that idea takes longer than writing it down on a note card. And that is really going to help you with funneling down and isolating what are the main ideas you want to communicate in prepared speech. And I think that will help everyone in their future prepared speech note making, that maybe I just have 2 or 3 main ideas that I can communicate within a 5 to 7 minute period. So that was the education overview that I wanted to share with everyone tonight. I'm going to relinquish the lectern back to our Toastmaster for tonight.
Thank you, Diego. I appreciate that. It's always helpful to learn some new tips and tricks to become a better speaker. Well, with that, that will be the end of my time up here as the Table Topics Master. Now I will relinquish the podium, or the lectern to the president.
Great meeting, everyone. Thank you all so much. We have a few minutes before the end of the meeting, so I want to take this opportunity to ask for volunteers for our next meeting. We have good news. We have 2 confirmed prepared speeches for next week, the 14th. Thank you, Carrie, for volunteering, as well as Maurice. We have openings for probably the most important roles. Now that we have 2 prepared speeches, do we have 2 volunteers to step forward for evaluating Carrie's or Maurice's speech? I feel Carrie's going to be doing an icebreaker speech. Is that right?
Right.
Have you selected your path yet?
I did.
Excellent. What is your path?
Coaching.
Coaching. We have openings for evaluators. We have availability for the counter, the grammarian, the table topics, the timer, as well as the Toastmaster.
I could evaluate her icebreaker.
Excellent. Thank you, Lawrence.
I'll do Toastmaster.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
I'll do table topics.
Donovan, I heard you say you wanted to do table topics. Is that right?
Yes.
Excellent. Can we have a second volunteer to evaluate Maurice's speech? Maurice, do you have an idea of what that prepared speech will be on? Like, what is it?
It'll either be understanding my leadership style, or I'll go to the book.
Okay.
One of those 2, but.
I'm gonna be at my dad's surgery, or I volunteer.
Okay. We have openings for timer. Joe, are you going to be here in town next week?
Right now,
Would you like to be timer?
I can.
Thank you so much. I can evaluate Maurice's speech. Sean, are you going to be in town?
I will be, I've got something, I can't make it next Monday.
Okay. Kyler, you haven't volunteered for a role.
I could take, what's left?
How about we general evaluator?
Who means you?
And Cheryl and Mudge, you 2 are still guests, is that right? I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully that won't be for very long.
Donovan, yeah, you are confirmed. I feel everyone in this room who can be here next week has volunteered, so that is the best that we can do tonight. And as we're, sorry,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question when you're done,
Okay.
before you close.
Sorry, I'm just writing down Kyler's name. I had a brain fart. Okay. What is your question, Lawrence?
Do all of the newbies have a mentor?
The answer to that question is no. That's a very great point. You are a good person to ask. Well, no, I should ask this outside of the meeting. Actually, I suppose I can't ask this outside of the meeting. So how do we go about assigning mentors?
Well, we find out who doesn't have them, and we ask for volunteers, and then we write them in.
Who doesn't have a mentor in here now?
Then if you already are, then being a mentor?
You can be a mentor to as many people as you feel powerful enough to work with.
Even if you're receiving mentoring?
Yeah, if you're
Yes.
already a
It,
mentee.
What is the rules? 3 speeches? Is it still 3 speeches?
Yeah, 3 speeches, yes.
I think 3 speeches, after 3 speeches, you can become a mentor because you are ahead of that person. You don't have to be, the master in order to mentor someone. Because you're always mentoring them to your level, but theoretically, your level is going to continue to improve. So you'll always be ahead of them, at least for a little while. And then eventually the mentee is supposed to surpass the mentor.
So Joe raised his hand. So Joe, I can be your mentor. Carrie, I feel, is new, so you don't have a mentor. Do we have a volunteer? Luke, thank you so much.
Luke? Good. I would have volunteered, but I'm going to be gone in February, so it's going to be hard to do that by email from China.
Who is your mentor, Sean?
Maurice.
Maurice. Kyler, you don't have a mentor, do you?
Mhm.
Okay, I can do that too.
Appreciate it.
I mean, I feel I'd be communicating the same advice to both of you. Okay. Okay, so after the meeting, let's make sure all the mentees and all the mentors have each other's contact information.
Yes.
Okay. If there are no other pressing questions, then we
Okay,
will-
just a quick question.
Go ahead.
Cheryl and Majid, do you have applications? I mean, you don't have to fill it out tonight. but-
I need a new one.
Okay, all right, okay. We'll do it.
Okay.
Okay, that's it, that's all I have.
All right, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all so much for having a full agenda for next week, and we will continue the path that we laid out today. Thank you.